Breaking news involving a New Orleans agency highlighted in a series of Fox 8 News reports. The New Orleans Office of the Inspector General is embedding some of its personnel in the Department of Safety and Permits.
As Tan Trung reports, multiple investigations into that agency uncovered serious problems.
With the key responsibility of inspecting homes, businesses, and construction sites, safety should be at the center of the New Orleans Department of Safety and Permits. Its title says so.
Unsafe sites and infrastructures will impede the efficient operations of the city and even prove deadly when there is catastrophic building failure.
The collapse of the Hard Rock Hotel development in 2019 is perhaps the most visual example of inspection failure. Well before that, the New Orleans Office of Inspector General began investigating the city's Department of Safety and Permits. Ed Michel says what his office found revealed systemic problems.
It wasn't just one instance over a period of several years. Over the course of a decade, we've conducted numerous investigations which have resulted in 19 individuals being indicted, arrested, or concluding their employment while we were investigating them.
That's part of the reason why Michel says his office is taking what he calls the extraordinary step to embed a member of the OIG in the Safety and Permits Department.
And we wanted this to be a very proactive approach to mitigate fraud and abuse within the system. So we're going to widen our scope beyond the individual employee at Safety and Permits and instead focus on rectifying systemic issues.
How Safety and Permits operated became the focus of multiple Lee Zurich investigations. Through a series of reports, Zurich uncovered fraud and corruption, including inspectors claiming to have inspected certain sites when GPS tracking on their city vehicles revealed they were elsewhere. In some cases, the inspectors were actually at home. Back in 2020, the city's chief administrative officer admitted the deep-rooted problems at the department made him question the notion of safety.
Are you concerned at all about the safety of buildings in this city?
I think this is where it's incumbent upon us and the administration to ensure that our due diligence is checked and then rechecked. So wherever there was question, wherever there was concern on any building or any inspection that did or did not happen, I think we have to double check.
The head of Safety and Permits said she welcomes the partnership with the Inspector General. Tammy Jackson said her department has hired new staff and even hired an outside consultant to improve its operation. Ed Michel says while Safety and Permits has moved in the right direction, embedding a member of his office in that department is still necessary.